On the front page this morning, Transport Minister Daryl Vaz is estimating that it will take up to the next 3 years for the rural school bus service to reach full capacity. Minister Vaz says this will ensure the cost effectiveness of the program. The rural school bus system is set to roll out in September at a flat rate of $50 per trip for students. Minister Vaz says the service he describes as a game changer will go a long way to ease the burden faced by rural parents and students who suffer greatly in securing transport to and from school. And the Transport Minister joins us this morning on the front page. Daryl Vaz, good morning to you.
Morning to you. Morning to you, listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. To begin here, Minister Vaz, if you could talk to us about the timeline for the buses to arrive.
Okay, so we have gotten PPC approval and we've gotten cabinet approval. Got cabinet approval last week, Monday. Not yesterday, Monday, last week. So we are now in the process of getting the buses. The buses were located and we are getting them to Miami. And we should start shipping them out on the 20th, which is next week, Friday. Mm-hmm. And it'll probably take about three weeks based on the amount of buses and the capacity of the vessel to get them here. So I'm figuring by the first week of July, and of course immediately, obviously, the refurbishing and the retrofitting will start in order to get 60 of the buses out for September morning and the other 40 between September and December for January morning. There is a redundancy of 10 buses, so it's 110 buses in total, and those 10 will be kept back to be able to fill any voids or any gaps that may occur to make sure that we don't have any downtime on the routes. It's going to service 258 schools across the island out of approximately 850 schools. And as I said yesterday, this has been a model that we have been able to come up with and a template based on, obviously, cost and proven efficiency. These buses have been used in the United States and Canada from 1939. And as someone, I know definitely George is much younger than me. You started seeing them in movies even before you went to the United States, and so they're a fixture. Importantly, and this is very important, the average age of the bus is about 10 years old, and the mileage is anywhere between 60,000 and 150,000 miles. However, the life cycle of those Cummins engines, diesel engines, which are well known, are between 300,000 and 500,000 miles before any overhauling or anything is needed. The important thing is that based on the bus that I'm using in Portland now, we're estimating about 14,000 to 15,000 miles per year because of, A, the bus only works in the morning and the evenings, and secondly, the school term in terms of summer and other holidays is about 7 months, 7.5 months. So when you divide that, you will see that you have significant amount of years, in some cases up to 20 years, that those buses would be usable without any form of rehabilitation or refurbishing or engine rebuilding. So I want to put that out there because obviously there are some that are against the rural bus system for whatever reason, including political reasons, and they're finding every reason to speak ill of the proposal. The last thing I want to say is that the original plan, when I became minister in 2023, was to use the existing public passenger vehicles and investors and subsidize the fares to make sure that they got full fare and therefore they were equitable in terms of a differentiation between carrying students and carrying adults. I cannot blame them because the fact of the matter is that the students are paying a significant reduction in fares, both in Kingston, in the KMTR, and now in rural Jamaica. We are extending that, as you said earlier in your comments, to $50 per trip, regardless of where the length of the trip, because obviously each trip, depending on the geographics, will be longer. The one that I'm doing now from Buff Bay to Port Antonio is 19 kilometers. So I'm sure that you'll have routes in rural Jamaica that will be longer than that based on the mapping of the Ministry of Education. But the fact of the matter is that the cost that we came up with for the different models outside of, obviously, these school buses out of North America was between $8 and $20 billion a year, which was just absolutely unaffordable and unsustainable. So I want to make it clear that this does not go against existing public transport operators. This actually helps them, because these buses in the first phase will only support about 30% of the rural population. And that's why I made a statement yesterday that in 3 years, including this year, we would be in a position to afford to roll out buses for the entire 850 rural schools across Jamaica. The cost of this, including the acquisition of the buses and all aspects of the servicing parts, maintenance, refurbishing, everything, is about $1.5 billion a year. And if you times that by 3, you're talking about $4.5 billion. Right now, as we speak, the school feeding program for the kids in rural Jamaica or across Jamaica is $8 billion per year. And the minister just announced an additional $1 billion because they're going to include breakfast. So $9 billion a year is what is being spent on nutrition for students when they get to school. The big point and the big gap and the big void is how do they get to school to be able to enjoy and have that meal and learn. And obviously, it is value for money. And I say without contradiction that this is the most transformational policy that has been implemented or is going to be implemented since independence. And it's not because it's my ministry and I am the minister. This is a game changer in every way, shape, and form.
You're tuned into The Front Page, having a conversation with the Transport Minister, Daryl Vaz, in relation to the rural school bus service set to roll out in September. Before the break, the minister was giving us some timelines as to when those buses will arrive. He says by about the first week of July, the buses should be in Jamaica and then afterwards retrofitted to meet September morning for the beginning of the new school term. Minister Vaz, in relation now to the parents and students who will be benefiting from the service, them getting their cards and be able to put money onto those cards to pay their fares come September, when will that service roll out?
That is being done in terms of the refurbishing of the buses. All of the technological aspects will be added to the bus. And I'm happy you asked that because I want to just give an overview. It's not just about the bus and the bus taking the children to school. It's about the safety and everything else that goes with it. So these buses are going to have driver monitoring systems. First of all, the drivers are going to be vetted and trained by the JUTC and cleared by the police through the NIB. So we're going to make sure that all the drivers, are not only capable, but that they are of the standing that we can entrust them to drive our children. So we're going to have a driver monitoring system to monitor the driver. We're going to have CCTV. We're going to have a dispatch management. We're going to have geofencing of the routes to make sure that we can know whether the routes are being held to. We're going to have speed control to make sure that the buses cannot go past a certain speed. Obviously, the technology will have mechanical alerts if there's any issue with the bus engine, maintenance management system, parental control portal, tracking, And of course, obviously, the Minister of Education will make sure that the route planning is efficient. So what does this mean? It means that the kids or the parents can top up the cards that will be issued by the schools to the students, both on their phone and at the other payment services that are offered, similar to cellular phone. The kids will swipe the cards on entering and also on leaving the bus. Therefore, the parents will be able to know when the kids board the bus and when they leave the bus. The schools obviously will have, along with JUTC and the Ministry of Education, the schools themselves will have access to a lot of the technology that is on the bus, keeping with data protection, obviously. And basically, what we will be in a position to do is to monitor not only the kids, but also the driver and the actual bus itself. There are going to be 3 different sizes of buses. There's going to be 45-seaters, 54-seaters, and 72-seaters. And that's basically to make sure that the geographics are met, because some of the bigger buses will not be able to navigate certain terrains. So we have 3 different sizes of bus, and the Ministry of Education has given us that information. Most importantly, and this is where I think it will have the biggest impact, is, as we said before, the cost. So it costs a parent in rural Jamaica between $300 to $600 a day for one student to go to school and come back, and in some cases more. You're talking about now $100 per day, 50 going, 50 coming. That is a savings of approximately 180,000 Jamaican dollars per student in rural Jamaica for the parent. Some parents have more, and most have more than one child. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can imagine the multiplier effect. And I know as a rural MP that many a times parents have to make a judgment call out of their children as to which one they think has the best chance of success, and gamble on that by investing all of their money in one student, and the rest of students or the rest of kids at home have to go to the farm, have to go work with them, go to the market, go wherever and try and make a life for themselves.
Minister,
but this,
yeah. Someone just sent me a message to say, ask the minister, let me read verbatim. GM, could you ask the minister if these buses have air conditioning? The effect of global warming makes this option no longer a luxury feature, says one of our listeners.
Some of them do, because they're coming from different states, but what they do have is windows that open, all of the windows slide open. So the truth of the matter is that not all of them will have AC, but some do.
Yeah.
But the one that I have in Portland does not have AC, and I can tell you that it is actually there's no complaints in relation to that.
Yes.
Because obviously. So that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And in the future, because this is a emergency situation, when we have time to plan for next year's acquisition,
yes,
we will definitely include that and make sure that we get that. But because of different states,
yes,
some have, some don't have.
Some quick questions before the time runs out on us, Minister. All right, so I heard you say that rolled into the cost for the buses is parts and repair and refurbishment. I want to ask about given that so many of these buses are coming, the maintenance capacity that the JUTC has right now, there will be a significant, I don't want to say burden, but the responsibility would have expanded significantly. Do you have the personnel in place to work on these school buses inevitably when they need attention?
Excellent question. So when I became minister and I assessed the existing situation with the existing buses and saw the condition of the existing buses in the fleet at JUTC. And by the way, I have 100 buses arriving, 63 arriving on Sunday, and the balance arriving on July 9th. So my commitment for the 100 JUTC buses, the second 100, will be in place for September morning. But let's continue this.
Yes.
So what I saw with that, George, was that JUTC was not maintaining the buses at the standard that was needed. So all of the new acquisitions that I have made include a maintenance contract by the manufacturer's dealer in Jamaica, overseen by the JUTC. So I've taken the maintenance out from the JUTC and given it to the manufacturer's representative on a 3-year contract, while they obviously transfer knowledge, train our mechanics and our engineers. Because first of all, it was CNG buses that I was buying, new technology.
Yes.
And in this case of the used buses, the supplier of the used buses will have that contract and have oversight by the JUTC. But very important, all of these buses that I'm buying had a strict maintenance schedule in the United States of America that was overseen by the Department of Transport. And we're going to adopt that same maintenance to make sure that the buses remain on the schedule. So we will do that. We will not bring the buses back to Kingston. We will set up arrangements, or the dealer supplier will set up arrangements throughout Jamaica and make sure that JUTC has oversight, and we make sure that the schedule that has been agreed to is met and the scope of work is carried out.
The other one is this. Hearing you speak about how much is rolled into this process with the new buses and the need for surveillance, monitoring, of course, ensuring that the schedule is kept to, ensure that the drivers operate as per stipulation. Doesn't there have to be then a rural school bus administration system staffed by professionals, whether you have them in the ministry and the departments are ready to redeploy, or you're gonna have to take on new people, because this has to have a coordinated management structure for it to work the way you've told Parliament it should work.
That is already in place between the Ministry of Education and the JUTC and the Ministry of Transport, and the regional offices of the Ministry of Education will play a key role in that. And let me just say before the question is asked, the buses will be on the school premises at specific locations to be able to move out in the morning. So the buses will not come back to one central location. They will go to the school that they will leave from in the morning to go out on the routes. And basically what we will do, obviously we will have provisions in there through JUTC for fueling. And as I said, for maintenance, we will have that. And of course, the routes will be decided on and given to JUTC by the Ministry.
Stay with me on the administration bit, because I'm anticipating a parent or few or even a school principal making a call to find out something regarding the movement of a bus or scheduling or something. Is there somebody for them to call? Will there be somebody for them to call?
That's correct. There will be specific functions, and those will be delegated either through the Ministry of Education, the principals of the schools, or the JUTC, depending on what the issue is. So there will be, and as I said before, the Ministry of Education and the schools that will be served will have access to information real time based on the access to the technology.
Richard Troop told me elsewhere, Minister, that the way the system will work, and I just wanted to confirm, is that a principle where a bus, of course, rests in between trips or on school mornings, that the principal will be able to track the movement of the bus, looking at an app, looking at some application on their phone or some other technological aid. Is that so?
That's correct. That's correct. So as I said before, it's very well thought out in terms of what we need as a government to know to protect our children, and also in terms of safety and security. So even the very driver will be monitored, and if the driver swerves off the route or comes off the route, or he's distracted talking to students or whatever while he's driving, it will pick it up and send a flag.
Last one before we go. So you say that these buses will be used during school hours and used during the school terms.
Specifically for students.
Yeah, for students, right. Will the buses be available for charter by schools who say they want to go to champs or they want to go to some big event at the stadium, at the arena, outside of school time? Will the buses be available for rental, for excursions and all of that?
So JUTC already has a division that deals with that. As a matter of fact, out of the 100 buses that are coming, 30 coach buses are coming, diesel coach, that usually do those excursions for churches, schools, etc. In terms of the school and the use of the buses outside of thing there, if it is school related, I'm sure that it will be considered by the Ministry of Education, but I would not want to have those school buses doing anything outside of school activities. And it's very important. Prime Minister made it very clear in his budget speech, and I want to reiterate it, that the school buses are an extension of the school. So whatever the rules are at the school is the same rules on the bus. So you can have disciplinary actions taken by virtue of actions that are taken on the bus. So it's well thought out, and it's not because it's my ministry and I'm leading it.
Yeah. But
Richard Troop has done a fantastic job, and the synergy between the Ministry of Transport and Education and the PSs it's just unbelievable. We'll have signage along the routes to know students know exactly where they are to stay, where they are to stand and wait, because the buses will pick up children along the routes.
What power, Minister, will the principal have on the time the bus moves? Is that power vested in the principal, or is it from the administrator of the system?
We work with both the schools and the administrators, just to indicate that based on the experience of the bus in Portland, we were doing 2 trips in the mornings, and we were concluding the second trip getting to the school at 8:20 when school starts at 8. So there's tweaking that has to be done, but you have to do it within reason. I can't ask a student to be at the bus stop at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It has to be done within reason. So that's being dealt with between the schools and the Ministry of Education regional office, and of course the JUTC.
Hear you this morning.
And finally, Minister, the hiring process. How is that going?
We've already advertised, and what we're trying to do is to get drivers from the parishes that the buses are going to work from, so that it's easier in terms of them getting to work and getting back. And obviously, if we put drivers from outside of Kingston and the KMTR, then obviously it increases, because we have to give them subsistence and all of that. So we're trying as best as possible to get drivers from within the parishes where the buses are going to work, to make it that much easier. And that process is ongoing as we speak, and I'm hoping that a second round of ads will go out this week, and hopefully we'll be able to get the sufficient amount of drivers. But if not, we will have to, in the meantime, work something for September morning. So let me just say in closing that the cry when the kids go to a bus stop or a taxi stand to get a transportation in rural Jamaica, the first thing that they hear is no schoolers, no schoolers. That is a cry from the conductors and everybody else. They don't want the schoolers. September morning, that is going to change. And what they're going to hear from the bus driver of the school bus is schoolers only. So that's a transformative change that I'm telling you about. You just imagine what it must feel like for a child to want to go to school, and the first thing he hears after he does all sorts of gymnastics to get to the bus stop or the taxi stand, to be told by an adult, no schoolers, no schoolers. And if they do take the schoolers, it is last resort, and they pack them up like sardines in the trunk, hanging out of the cars, sitting on adults' laps, young females sitting on adults' laps, which you can imagine. And it is just absolutely unacceptable and has been unacceptable for decades. And as I said before, I'm going to make another call again because the utterances that I'm hearing from the opposition, I'm not liking. Leave the politics out of the children's business. This is not partisan. This is going to help every rural parent
We have to leave
be
it.
able to send their children to school in a safe, economical, convenient methodology.
We have to leave it there. Daryl Vaz, the Minister of Transport.
And we will roll this out for the 3 years. So when I return after the next event, my commitment on behalf of this government, I can't speak for the other one, is that this will be done in 3 years, including this year, so 2 more years, for 850 rural schools. That is the commitment of Daryl Wesley Philip Vaz.
The Minister of Transport, we have to leave it there. Transport Minister talking to us this morning about the rural school bus service to be rolled out in September. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
You.